My name is Steve, and I escaped from Communist Hungary when I was 18 years old. You can call it defecting, escaping, however you want it. Living under communism is really interesting because there is not much there. So when you're there, you're pretty much, you get whatever the government tells you is that the fact, unless you do your own research, which is not really easy because they don't let you do your own research. There is no alternative media, but especially back in those days, there wasn't any. So you either figure it out for yourself, if you're smarter than the average bear, and say that this is not really it. When I don't have anything to eat, when I don't have any food, when I go hungry, when I have a job assigned, when I have basically the school that I go to is picked by the government, that's not really the thing. If you're at least of average intelligence, you figure out that this might not be how it's supposed to be, but that's the only way that they can keep people in line, and that's the only way that they can keep people dumb. If the education is controlled by the government, that's what you get. So if you want to survive in a communist economy, the only way to do it, because everybody works for the government, there's hardly any private industry, there is not much to do for anybody else. What you do is, well, it's the government, so why don't I just make it mine and make a little money on the side? And a lot of people, that's how they do it. I had an uncle that worked in a brick factory, and every day he worked, he threw a couple of bricks over the wall. And years later, guess what? He built a house. And the bricks came from a brick factory because otherwise he would not be able to afford to build a house. But that's an interesting way to look at it. So in other words, what it comes down to, you have to outsmart the government, you have to steal to survive. And they make sure that you have enough to live on. They make sure that for the most part you really don't go very hungry. You might go hungry but not very hungry. They make sure that there's a roof over your head. Everything is subsidized, but nobody wants to work because there is no interest in it for you to work, because why should I work? Nobody else does. If I don't work, I still get the same money as everybody else. But they made an interesting rule back in the day. You had to carry your identity booklet, which listed your job, your place of work, and everything else. So if you're out of work for more than 30 days, guess what? The cops stopped you, they ask you for your little identity book. When you left a job, they put it in there that you left the job. So now it's over 30 days, guess where your next stop is? The local jail, because you are what's called a threat to society because you don't want to work. So that's what, in a nutshell, what socialism is and how you survive in a socialist economy. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one that knows this. Anybody from the former Eastern Europe, anybody from Venezuela, anybody from Cuba that get out will tell you the same thing. I'm just the old guy that lived it and don't want to live it again and don't want it to come here, and I will pretty much do everything in my power to make sure that it don't get here. It's really easy. I was pretty young, about 14, 15 years old, and one interesting fact is from Eastern Europe, they really don't care if you drink. Back in those days, there was no drugs there, but you can go out and drink at 14, 15 years old, not legally, but nobody's gonna say anything about it. But what happened is that around 14 years old, I figured out that, watching Tom and Jerry and Kojak on pirated Yugoslavian TV, because you really only have two TV channels in Hungary, I was looking at Tom and Jerry, I'm like, in the United States, they can make cartoons like this. And in Eastern Europe, they can even make a stick figure cartoon. I'm like, that's interesting. So listening to government propaganda, which says, oh, in the US everybody's starving, the working class is miserable, they're dying, they sleeping in parks covered with newspapers because they have no place to live. But I'm watching Kojak on Serbian TV, and I see all these big cars, I see all these supermarkets full of food, and I go into the supermarket in Hungary, and yeah, they had a supermarket with empty shelves. I mean, you get the bread and the basic stuff that you get to survive on, but that's about it. The rest of the shelves, for the most part, are pretty much empty. When you have a Christmas and you get an orange for Christmas and you think that's a great thing, or you get a banana for Christmas because that's a great thing, something is not right. So 14 years old on, I pretty much planned that as soon as I turn 18, I'm out. What's the worst thing that can happen? Can be worse than what we have over here. So, like, I'm going to check it out for myself. So I decided that, you know what, I didn't pick the country that I was born in, but I can definitely pick the country where I'm going to live. And that's how I ended up here. I looked around, see what was the best, where I can survive and where I can thrive and where I can do the most I want to do in life. And this is pretty much what came up. I mean, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, but if you look around you, nobody is trying to escape to Eastern Europe or any of the communist countries, unless you're a complete idiot. But that's my take on it. And everybody is coming here, and people are dying to come here. I know people that get shot on the border. I know people that went to jail for years on the border trying to escape. And that doesn't really happen nowhere. And when you have to have a country where you keep people in because they're trying to get out, there is something fundamentally wrong with that system.